everyone, welcome to the Creative Industries podcast at Super Jam. My name's David, and I've got a whole student team helping me here today who you're going to meet in a second. We are talking to Chris from Wildwood Media and Films today, who's got a feature film that is in negotiations to come out on Amazon soon. That's the latest project, which you'll find out about. He's done work with Vanity Fair, the NHS, with Kent County Council, with Street Soccer, loads of companies from small to big, and helping them get their message out into the world through video and content like that. So, Chris, it's great to have you here. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing well. It's great to be here. Thank you for the invite. I'm really looking forward to having a chat with you all. And it's great. Thank you for that very nice introduction.
No bother. And we've also got Owen. How you doing, Owen?
Hello, I'm doing good, thank you.
Good. We got Stan. How's it going, Stan?
I'm good, thank you.
Cool. We got Lily. How's it doing, Lily?
It's very good. Thanks for having me.
Good stuff. I will warn you, a feature on our show Lily's developed is Lily's last two questions, so there'll always be a final
two questions.
They'll always come up at the end. And we got Hudson as well. How you doing, Hudson?
Hello, I'm good.
Awesome. And so you guys in the student team, if you want to comment or ask questions, just jump in at any point, and then at any point's fine. Even whether it's a comment or a conversation or a question, that's fine. And then towards the end, you get more chance as well. So, Chris, like I said, great to have you here. I'm so excited to hear about the feature film, which we'll come to. But what we love to do at the start of the podcast is usually rewind the clock. We're going back to when you were maybe the same age as our students. They're about 16 to 25 years old. And just find out, what was it like for you at that time? Were you in education? Was this when you started finding your creative passions? What was it like for you back then?
Yeah, sure. That's a good place to start, because like you say, that's kind of where, at least from an educational sense, where we can start to develop what we're really into in terms of, choosing the courses and planning for the future, perhaps in a more connected sense to what we want to do. So I was quite lucky. I'd always wanted to make film. Or at least in some kind of sense, you're not necessarily aware of the career paths and that, but I was always making films and and then so when it was kind of I was doing my GCSEs and that was when I was like, I can actually progress into a career here. I can follow certain strands. So I went to college in Mid Kent in Maidstone, and there I studied an interesting thing, and I've no issue with saying it at all. I didn't do too great in my GCSEs, and I really wanted to, do film. So I really wanted to go to uni, but I couldn't go on to the 2-year course until I had done I can't remember what it was called, but it was like an in-between course. It was like, look, I've got to prove I've got the skills and that I can get on the 2-year, because my GCSEs didn't necessarily reflect that. And that's really because I'm very creative. I'm a visual learner. So really doing a lot of exams and a lot of the academic stuff I struggled on. And that was why. So that got me on the 1 year, then the 2 year, and then I went to university. So, and at university I did film production. So the middle bit, I mean, you guys have got so many great options now, and I know Super Jam offer some fantastic stuff. So when I was kind of finishing and going into college, it was really only media studies I could do, and that kind of covered everything, which was great because I got a good learning experience. But I couldn't specialize like you guys can now. So I think you were really great to be able to do that. For me, it was like an overall course that led me to uni, and then that led me into my career, which I'm happy to talk about whenever you guys, if that's something that comes up as well.
Yeah, and it's so nice to hear that, that it kind of worked out for yourself. Because I think, like you said, in kind of mainstream schools, they do lots of great work, but there is this pressure on the academic side of it, which doesn't suit everyone. And what's cool is you might have left, and some people would have said you'll never get into uni now because you didn't get the grades, but you found a way. You found a way, which is always inspiring to hear. That if there's that classic saying, if there's a will, there's a way. And you made it work. So was that just through doing research of like, okay, if I can't do that straight away, what can I do? Or was there people helping you a little bit? Or you're more kind of researching that in the background yourself at the time? Because you're like, I want to do film studies and media and stuff. Did you have to really push through to try and get that? It sounds like you had to. Anyway, like, how did that come about?
No, to be fair, I'd love to make it sound like it was really hard and I went on a really long journey with it, but it wasn't. I mean, first of all, I will say this is very early, if not pre-internet days. This was 1996,
Yeah.
so there was no kind of jumping on there and researching and finding out. It was very much, we were all in that kind of, there was careers advisors and the school help, but there wasn't. You couldn't really easily go and find what other people were doing. Even like what we're doing now. There was nothing like this podcast and YouTube and all that stuff. So, but. I went to the college and they were really great. The college was fantastic, and I went there. They knew that I wanted to do stuff. They'd seen my work as well from a creative point, so they were look. We can see you got the creativity. We can see it makes sense. You get on this course, but for whatever reason, the rules are rules. You can't go on this 2 years straight away. So they said, but we do have a 1 year course for people like yourself or people who just want to have a 1 year taster on what it's like. So that's so I did that, and I did one additional GCSE as well. That topped me up enough. So then when I went on the 2 year course, I did. So in some ways you can argue I was a year behind on my education. I went to uni 1 year older than everyone else, but a year isn't really a big deal, and it got me to do what I wanted to do. So that's how it was. And an interesting thing, so the college I was with, they were really great, and I got on the course, spent 3 years there, and they hooked me up with some really good work experience, which is something we'll talk about as well, because I'm a big believer in it. And then when I did the work experience, it was just really eye-opening. So then in my career, after I left education and I was building a career and I was starting to have productions, I went back to the college to bring in students from there to do work experience with myself. And then when I set up my business, the college heard that an alumni had set up their own company, so they offered me some work. We got on really well, and they loved it. So now they're one of my clients as well. So I've kind of gone full circle, if you like.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's so kind of you to like pay it forward and pay it backwards if you had a bit of work experience. And even coming on this podcast is helping our students with their work experience and stuff as well, man. So do appreciate that. That's awesome. Well, I think I've definitely... pretty soon we're going to find out a bit about how you set up the company and stuff, because I think a lot of people in the creative industries, whether your music, your graphics, your video, I think the percentage, last time I checked, there was a big survey done during COVID, was above 70% of creatives are freelancers or self-employed or solopreneurs, fall in that category. So I think that's going to be, if you're up for that, that'll be quite interesting to chat about that and how you first started getting your clients and stuff. If you guys are happy with it on the student team, we might maybe skip to that just now, if that's cool for you guys. Would you want to hear a bit about that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, all right.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So, if that's cool with you, Chris, like, what was it like? So you've left uni and you've done your college before that, and you've maybe got a bit of experience under your belt, and you're at this stage. What made you think, I'm going to set up my own company? How did that come about? Was that a Dragon's Den moment?
Dragon's Den.
Well, it took about just over 10 years to have that Dragon's Den moment, in fairness. So I came out of a uni, I moved to London thinking this is it, I'm going to work in film, this is amazing. Didn't have any contacts, but I was like, what the hell? And then too expensive to live and do anything. So a year later I came back, and then I worked for a video production company in Kent. And
if I could ask, how did that come about? Because I guess that's a step our students might do before going on to start their own business. Was you sending out CVs and demo reels, or how was that one come about? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I remember I rang them. Whether it was my first or many, I honestly can't remember. But that would be down to the individual. You're either going to get lucky on your first call, your 100th call. You just got to keep making those phone calls. So
keep doing it,
whichever one it was. But I rang up. I definitely remember ringing up. And then, like I say, and then they took me on. I say I worked for them. I did, and I worked for them pretty full time. But I actually went on as a freelancer.
Yeah.
Which again, like what you've said, and we'll touch more on it soon. But that was, this now. I mean, I'm going back. Oh, really show my age. But that was that was over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So So I did that over 20 years ago, and then but that gave me some good ground. Everything's a lesson. And then I got a job in local government at a communications team. So it was a permanent. Which made sense to me at that point. It was a more permanent role. And then that offered me lots and lots and lots of opportunities. And I get bored kind of sitting still. So I kind of started or pushed a lot of initiatives. And then after 10 years of that, I got made redundant. But I was kind of one of those people who are kind of happy to get made redundant.
Okay.
I'd always wanted to run my own business, and I pretty much knew that would have something to do with film, if not a production company.
Mm-hmm.
And but then by that time I had a house, a child, and partner, all that stuff. I was like, I can't just leave my job and risk it. What am I going to do? But so I got made redundant, 10-year package, and then that was what allowed me to have the ability to set it up. And so, I mean, there was certainly that kind of looking for opportunity and in adversity, which I think is really common in entrepreneurs and doing any kind of business or project. You're going to have issues and problems, and how can you solve them or turn them into wins? and so that's what I did. So I'd kind of been thinking of the idea as long as I wanted to make film. Really, it was I'm either going to conquer Hollywood or I'm going to set up my own business and do my own mini Hollywood. So, and it's the latter that's come true, which is great. And so I guess because I'm passionate about it, and also being blunt, I had no choice but for it to succeed. Well, if it didn't succeed, I'd go and get a job again. But I really wanted it to. So it was either a case of I don't pay my bills or I make it a success. So that kind of just forced me to keep working.
Yeah, I love that. I've heard a few online entrepreneurs who kind of put content out. I often say that, like, I had to make this work, and that drive really helped. Having that sort of drive to, like, I've got, whether it was like personally, just like I really want to, or like, and financially, I really have to as well. And that kind of gave them the motivation to keep chasing every day in it. I've got a quick question, because when you're setting up your business, a big thing you got to decide on is the name. So how did we come across the name Wildwood Media or Wildwood Films?
So so it started as Wildwood Media. I say we'll definitely touch on Wildwood Films because they're both accurate, but Wildwood Media came first. And I tried and thought of every name of the sun, and I wanted it to obviously be something that I thought was good, but I didn't want it to be overly slick or trendy or of the moment, because they either date very quickly, in fact almost always, or they don't sound right, at least for what I was doing. I knew I'd be doing a lot of B2B, business to business video. So I needed something that was kind of general but wasn't boring and was still memorable. So I could not think of anything, and me and my wife were backwards and forwards, and then I had to go to the bank to set up a bank account because we'd already done a project and I had to get paid. And I said, look, if I haven't thought of a better name by tomorrow morning, I'm just going to call it Chris Newby Productions, because I said that'd be the business name. We can change the name at a later date. But I didn't want to call it that. But I was just like, I need to set up a bank account tomorrow morning. And then literally the last thing my wife kind of said before we were going to bed, she was like, what about Wildwood Media? And I was like, oh, I kind of really like that. That fits a lot of stuff. I like nature, and I've been out in nature, and it sounds nice. It sounds good. I was like, I think that's fantastic. So I said, if we don't think anything better, that's what I'm going with. So it was that simple. It was that arbitrary. It was just, there was no kind of link to anything else other than my wife thought of it. And it was not only better than anything else we had, but now I can't imagine calling it anything else. It's my company name, and that's a big part of me.
Yeah, and it sounds good. It rolls off tongue. It's easy to Google as well.
And it kind of reminds me of the name of the animal park in Canterbury, Wildwood.
Wildwood.
Yeah, it literally reminds me of that.
It does. You're right. And there's a song by Paul Weller called Wildwood. People often say, "Oh, do you really like Paul Weller?" And I'm like, I know Paul Weller, but I'm not personally that I know of him, and I know, but I'm not the biggest. I like his stuff. I'm not a fan, so no, it's not come from that. And actually, but the Wildwood the Wildwood Wildlife Park, actually,
Yeah.
there was a kind of good thing about that, because when I set the business up and I started going to networking meetings, so chatting with other businesses, oh, where are you from? I'd say I'm from Wildwood. And they would be like, oh, I know that name. Oh, yeah. And they think they'd heard of me before. They hadn't. They were just thinking of the animal park was lodged somewhere in their head, probably. But the name had that recognition, which was, I say, not on purpose at all. It was a lovely accident. But so early on, people were going, I've heard of you. Brilliant. And it gave us that recognition, which actually wasn't because of us. And I'm certain it was the wildlife park they were thinking of.
That's funny. Please tell me the Wildlife Park has been a client at one point. That would be so funny.
They haven't, which is terrible. And
I know.
They should. They really should. They should be getting on the phone with us. We passed 10 years last year, and I remember saying, one of the things I'm going to do for my 10 years is get in contact with Wildwood and say, come on. And I didn't do it. So maybe this year is the year.
Just be like, can we get a video of like Paul Weller feeding penguins at Wildwood
or the
or
tiger
like
they've got in there, like goes to tiger feeding in. I'm like, Paul Weller, they're like
combine both.
Yeah, I love it. That would be fantastic. But what a great marketing video that would be.
I know. I was just thinking that'd be a funny one. Save that for the 20th year anniversary.
And I was just thinking, what's this person doing? Why we're doing like a video? Like, wow.
Amazing. That's maybe a funny thing to talk about, because obviously with your videos, you will be out and about video and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you ever get people coming up like, oh, what's going on here? Or like, are people kind of just used to cameras being everywhere these days? Or have you had any moments like that?
Yeah, so first of all, all the time.
All the time, okay, cool.
And
you just got the perfect shot and someone's like, what are you doing here, mate?
Yeah, that's pretty common. And it's weird. I thought about this a lot, because you'd think in this day and age where everyone has a camera and everyone is filming everything, that people would be more used to it. But we're not. We're still kind of questioning. And I think that's for two reasons. One, yes, our cameras are bigger and different to phones. So we look more professional. That gets people a bit of intrigue. Oh, what's going on? But I think also a lot of people are now aware, more so than ever. Like everyone is a lot more media savvy, basically. So, what are you filming? Do you have permission? Are you going to accidentally see me looking like an idiot? That's what people are more worried about. Not anything untoward. Most people aren't bothered about, you're filming for nefarious reasons, but it's like, was I just picking my nose when you walk past? That's what they're worried about. So we do get asked most of the time, but it's part of it. And you're right. It's only ever irritating when it's at like the most crucial moment of the shot. If it's not, it's just part of the job.
Like an important shot, definitely.
Yeah, amazing stuff. That's so cool. And like I said, it's so magic hearing about how you set up the business. And I was going to ask, over the years, now you've been in business over 10 years with Wildwood, have you seen anything that's changed or developed over the years that you think's worth chatting about?
Well, certainly, I'd love to, even though I worked in it, I was quite young, but I'd love to give a shout back to all the production companies that were around pre-internet, because it's such a requirement now, and to have video, especially for businesses, and that's really who we mainly serve. It's the modern day shop window is the video, and so you really need a video, and you really need a high quality video to stand apart. But to be producing videos pre-internet, where when it was really sending out DVDs and then before then VHS tapes, to do that and to sustain a company, I think is really impressive. So although that change has happened before I set my company up, I think the biggest change for our industry that has helped it grow is the prevalence of, in particular, YouTube and social media. And then I think really what's the biggest, look, AI is obviously a huge one, but I'm a believer in using, not being afraid of new technology, especially when it's like that. Like everyone says to me, oh, I bet you're worried about AI taking your job, and I'm like, well, no, because you still need anyone, look, anyone can use AI, but you still need to be creative to produce the right content. And it's not just about the visuals when you're doing what I do, it's about selling a company, it's marketing a company. Yeah, we may be doing it sometimes in a less subtle way because we're doing it through video, but you still need to know how to tell a story. You still need to know what looks good. You still need to think about colors and framing and imagery, etc. So just being able to type something in AI and get an image is great in its most simplest form, but in a professional sense, it doesn't bother me at this point. I can see ways it would, and I can imagine people listening going, "Oh, but what about?" And they're right. But actually, if you can utilize that in your business, that's great. Now, we're actually not right now because we haven't had the need. For voiceovers, I still prefer to. It doesn't sound quite right. Still prefer to use a real voiceover artist with that human touch. I'm a believer in all that, and my clients want me to film their stuff, so we're going out to their venues and filming. So I've not actually used it in a project yet, but I keep abreast of it, and I'm happy to use it if and when the time comes along.
Absolutely, yeah. And I guess, like you said, there's so many things that it's very far away from replacing like going out and like doing the actual filming and stuff. And hopefully for maybe the post-production, like editing side of things, there might be some tools that'll more be like a help than taking away. Because then the editing's kind of much of as an art form in itself, creating great edits and kind of linking all your shots together and stuff. You know, I'm sure there'll be ways AI can like assist a human in doing that, and maybe attempt to do it. But at the end of the day, I think because humans are so sensitive to things, I think we're at the stage where we'll always be able to almost like still feel like if a human's hands and craft has been on it. I think, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely, and actually, you're right. And I had forgotten because I had the kind of visual sense about it. I have used it for some sound work. Actually, there's been some cleaning up of sound work, which has been phenomenal. So, like I say, I think it's absolutely a tool that can be used for good. But like anything, it can be used for bad, and it could lead to doom and all that. But I think it depends how it's looked after from the top, and it depends how the users use it. And the same. When the time comes that we use it more, we'll just be using it to supplement other stuff. We're still going to be shooting on cameras and all that because, that's what's needed.
Yeah, and in regards to positive changes in the industry, and I'm guessing you've seen it, do you find that because of the prevalence of the internet and video content and now the explosion in short form video content, do you find I'm curious, has work for videographers grown, say, over the past 10 years, would you think? Has there been more opportunities?
I think it's certainly, at the very least, maintained. Look, you have dips and you have ups and downs, and that's connected to kind of socioeconomic issues like anything, and politics and all that. So there's always going to be ups and downs, and there's always going to be fear of what could happen. I think to a certain degree you need to be aware of that, but also ignore, otherwise you'll never do anything. You just got to go for it. I think certainly our company's, like, on one side I could say yes, because our company's grown, so there could be an argument that it's grown because the need has grown, but actually I think that's two different things. I think our company's grown because we've done great work that has helped us bring in new clients and, et cetera, et cetera. In terms of just in general, I think we're just living in an age where content, and in particular for what we're talking about, video content, is essential. And it's been that way probably for the last 10 years, but I think it's fair to say video content has really grown in probably in social media sense, maybe a little less than that. And the other big one that's come in is live streaming, which was very much during the pandemic. I mean, we didn't live stream before the pandemic. There was never really there was a market for it, but not at the smaller medium levels. And so during the pandemic, I quickly invested in I realized this is going to have to be something that's done. So I very quickly invested in live streaming equipment, and that kept us going during the pandemic because people needed to get their message out. We work a lot with the NHS. It's one of our specialisms. So we were live streaming a lot for the NHS, but also other organizations, charities, people who needed conferences, AGMs, who needed people to see and hear. So I think streaming has grown, and each one of them for us in our business is a microcosm. Whereas if you take a step back, you go, well, that's now you can become a specialist in live streaming. You can become a specialist in video content with social media. You can become a specialist in promotional and corporate, etc. So when we talk about jobs in video, there's so many layers to it, from just you and a video camera to you all the way up in charge of a $200 million Hollywood film, right? There's a million and one jobs within that. People come to uni and go, I want to be a director. That's usually the sexy one, right? I want to be a director. And then when they come out, by then they perhaps would have found other jobs they like. So you might now be interested in sound, or you might be interested in camera or writing, etc. And then beyond that, you've got electricians and chippies and all this that is all needed within the video and film production world. So there's a million and one jobs. So I think the creative sector has issues, and there are issues within this country with that, which are too big to go into now. But I would say, in the general sense, for freelancers, it's a good industry. I think that's why it's really popular, freelancers. It's a good industry, and for businesses like mine, although we have staff, it helps with the costs when you have freelancers and you have specific projects. So I think people should be bold and get into freelancing. I would say, perhaps, depending on who you are and what experience you've got, coming out and getting a job at a production company for a year or two before going freelance can be handy, to know how they work, to know what their requirements are, to get more experience under your belt. Because I think when you come out of college or uni, whatever it may be, you come out confident, right? Maybe in awe of what the world is now in front of you, but I can do this. I can grab my camera and film anything as good as anyone. That's great, but there's so much more to it. Like I mentioned earlier, with regards to AI stuff, it's about storytelling. It's about engagement. It's not just about making things look pretty. So I think that comes with experience, and that experience you'll get in education, and you'll get in work experience as well, and also working in places, I think, before jumping into freelance. Unless you're one of the lucky few, some people come out of uni, fall into some freelance work that then instantly takes them on a roller coaster.
Absolutely, yeah. And there was you talked about kind of the production companies and how it's a good chance to get experience before you go freelance, and it made me think of your film production company as well. Was your first feature length film, so I think that deserves all around applause. Pulling that together. Woo. Independent filmmaking needs a lot of drive. There's a lot to it, so this is awesome. So I think it's quite fun to, if you want, hear a little bit about that just now, Chris. So what drove you to do the film? What can you tell us about the film itself? And then maybe we can chat about that kind of thing a little bit, if that's cool.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I mean, the kind of the brief history is, like I said, I always wanted to make films. So really, since I realised that anyone could make a film, and there's certainly a caveat to that we'll kind of get onto, but in a simple sense, anyone can make a film. You just need that kind of drive and determination and education to lead you along the right path. And yes, there is luck along the way. And actually, then kind of summing up almost 20 years of trying to get a feature made, I had a lot of bad luck, and not bad luck in that big sense of the world, but in terms of just trying to get films made, there was lots of bad luck. People making promises that weren't kept is usually the main one. People who like to sound bigger and important than they are. When you're young, you can get caught up in that, going, oh my God, this person's gonna help me make my film, and then it doesn't end up being so. There was all kinds of things that happen. And the other one is the film industry is incredibly slow moving for so many reasons. I really wanted to make a feature before I was 40. So when it was about 2018, I was like, I fed up of trying to get other people to help me make films. And look, sometimes it may have been because maybe they thought my work wasn't great, which is fine. I'm not here to say I'm perfect, but there were times when you'd have great feedback and people want to make stuff and all that, and it just wouldn't happen. So I was like, the company was running, the company was doing well. and I thought I'm going to take some money from the company and reinvest that into a film. So that's what we did. I'd worked with a couple of really good actors, Harry Waters and Denise Wilton, and they just really inspired me with their talent that I would love to work with them. So I wrote, and I thought actually Harry could play Denise's son very, very easily. So therefore I was like, I'm going to write a film about a mother and son, and kind of, an old adage in film, and that is write what you know. And then the other one is when you're making low budget production is right around what you can get, what you can access. So I kind of came up with the story, which very simply is about a mother and son. Say he's 18, and they've got and it's just the two of them, and they've grown apart, and there are some mental health issues there, and they need help. So they end up going to a retreat, which is run by a social media influencer. And when they get there, it's not what they thought. And the first half of the film is kind of this mother-son dramedy, and then it becomes in the second half like a horror film, if you like, more psychological kind of horror. And then throughout it, there's a certain kind of dark humor that links everything together. So that was kind of having that, I then wrote the film, and I kept thinking of what I could get, or even if I didn't have a contact, I thought that sounds easy enough to get, I'll include that. And then, so we had a film, and then people came aboard, and I'd worked in and around, like I said, the industry. Even though I'd had failures in getting my own film made, I'd worked with and around enough filmmakers to build up a network. So I then called in lots of favors, and then so we managed to get a really good crew, fantastic director of photography. So with the same cameras they're using in Hollywood. So we had all the kit, we had all the people, and then really it's just about tenacity. It's about keep going. There's loads of points where you're like, I should jump off this. This is scary. But then I'm like, then I'll never do it. And so luckily we did it, and we shot it in 2019. But then the pandemic came along, so that ground everything to a halt. And actually, we did manage to keep working on it, but it was a lot slower. So by the time the film was finished and ready to be sent out, that was in 2023.
Yeah.
And then it got accepted for its world premiere at an incredible film festival called CineQuest, which is in San Jose in California.
Cool.
Which is basically home of Silicon Valley. So it was like it was sponsored by like Facebook and met all these kind of incredible kind of tech dignitaries. So, and obviously loads of other amazing filmmakers. So that was a real once in a lifetime dream opportunity. And then last year it spent its time doing the rounds, doing film festivals. And then near the end of last year, when that was drying up, okay, now it's time to look into distribution. And that is a minefield I won't bore you with, but it is a real minefield. And again, it's full of people making promises that they can't deliver on, and shady things and all kinds of stuff. So I thought I'm going to just try and do it myself. So without any contacts, I've kind of trying to get it onto Amazon. So I'm in the middle of that process. So I've got over a lot of the initial hurdles. They've got the film. We're just waiting for them to say whether it can go on there or not. So it's great that I'm having those conversations. By the time this podcast's out, I might have had a no. I might have had a yes. So just because we're talking about it, I should caveat that it's not a given, but it will be released somewhere. There's lots of places you can have films come out now. But Amazon, because of its wide reach, would be a great place to have it.
Yeah, and I hope you do get that yes. And I get the feeling if you get a no, you will find a way, Chris. You seem like the kind of, you will not stop. And I think that's a great lesson for our students, not just the patience, but the resilience. And also just if someone knocks you back, just keep going if it's your dream, because there's a whole world of opportunities out there. I bet when you started, making this film, maybe you didn't expect to end up in San Jose in California. How cool is that? You never know.
I spent a long time dreaming about, films and oh my God, what I forgot to go here and that. But then when it finally came to making it, I didn't think about anything other than making it. Like there was no, if I had kind of I'd only do one thing differently if I could go back and do it again. And I would probably try and make it a little more commercial. I just made the film very much, this is a film I want to see. I don't know, I just didn't even have in my head about selling it because, I do the business side, so I like to think I have a business head, but this was, I want to make something purely creative. Yeah. It's my money, it's my film, I'm going to make it my way. Mm-hmm. And in some ways that was great. But now coming out the other end and reflecting back on, 4 or 5 years of it, I'm like, actually, I'd like to make something a little more commercial so I could have had potential, what would that look like now? Trying to get it on Amazon, it's not a very commercial film, so that's an issue and stuff like that. So that's kind of the only thing I'd slightly change. But then I'm so proud of the film, what everyone achieved then, really. And I could say, yeah, I never dreamt it, but that's also because I just didn't allow myself to go there. It was kind of learning to walk again in some ways.
Yeah, and like I said, you've preserved a lot of artistic integrity, and the works that get remembered quite often are like that as well. So I think you maybe made the right choice, but it is a good learning thing as well for future projects. It's good to reflect and think, okay, well, maybe another one I can tweak it a bit. Along the way, whether it was with the film or other media projects you're involved in, but there must have been a few funny fails or mishaps along the way. Is there any one of them you'd want to share with us?
I'm always, do you know what? I'm always quite happy to share. I also have a terrible memory, and I must admit, I can't think of any hilarious ones. I guarantee I will later. But I would say, actually, I'll probably turn it around. It won't be as fun or as exciting. But I think there's the two things that I failed at early on. And so not a funny fail, but failed at, and that I came to learn is important. One is you have to go out there and do it for yourself. Not, when I was young, I'm out of uni, I've got a degree now. The work's going to come to me, etc. And it took me a little while to realise that wasn't the case. Even though, I rang up and I got a job at a video production company, I'm still thinking at that age, because then I'm like 22, 23 or whatever. Oh, it's a matter of time till Spielberg rings me up and says, come and work. So, and even though I'm making short films back then and I'm writing scripts and I'm thinking it's a matter of time, that's just part of it. And the other part of it, if you're going to be a freelancer or a filmmaker, in whatever sense you want to look at them, you have to be entrepreneurial. You don't have to run a business to be an entrepreneur, but you need to be out there doing it. The other big thing that I've learned that is essential when I'm having conversations with students and people entering the industry or thinking of entering the industry, and actually this is for any industry in the world this goes for, but obviously focusing for myself on film and for you guys there, actually, out in fairness, absolutely the music industry, if we kind of combine all that and call it the entertainment industry, I would say network is essential. And the line that has always been used, hundreds of years probably, is it's who you know. And certainly in film, it's who you know in film. And I always remember thinking, well, I don't know anyone. My dad doesn't work in Hollywood, so I don't know anyone. And actually, it doesn't mean that. It's about who you meet on the way and who you stay in contact with, and that becomes your network. So you don't have to be best friends with them. I think it's always nice if you like them. You don't want to use people. So there has to be a relationship there, and whatever that is. But that network is what will get you where you want to go. And that, combined with the drive you have to give yourself, will lead you to great jobs, either as full-time contracts, as a freelancer, as making a movie, setting up a business. I couldn't have made my film without a network, and therefore I couldn't have made that feature too many years before, because that network grew as my company grew and I met more people. So all the fails I think of before, which, like I say, was writing scripts and trying to make films and not going anywhere, was because I didn't have that network of people to help it become a reality. So whatever you want to do, and especially to everyone sitting there, at your end of the podcast and potentially those listening, if you want to work in your chosen industry, not only do you have to keep going for it and be willing to accept rejection, which is never easy, but you also have to stay in contact with your college friends, your uni friends, your professional friends, and anyone you meet along the way. And it's easy in this day and age with social media. It's very easy to stay in contact with people, keep on track of what they're doing, congratulate them, etc. Because there's going to be points where they're going to go, you would be perfect for this, or you would say to them, you're going to be perfect. And either way is essential.
Amazing stuff. And thanks for that really good description of networking, because it's a word you hear a lot, but the way you described it, I think makes it a bit more like easy to understand and action for any of our listeners as well. Now, we're getting near the end of the podcast. We're not right at the end yet, we're getting there. So I'm getting a feeling, Lily, have you got any of your...
Two, actually.
Two questions. Lily's last two
You did say
questions.
a bit too.
Okay, so my first question is, if you would do like you explained, you've got your own movie that you've done to add on to Amazon Prime Video. If you would do another movie, what kind of movie actors, like celebrities, would you add into that movie?
Ooh, so is that what you mean, like the dream ones? Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
dream casting.
like literally, if you had another movie that you can think of, what kind of actors would you pick?
That's a good question.
So
I like
like
that.
some from like maybe Stranger Things or Gladiator or anywhere.
Yeah, certainly. Well, that's great, and we've all got those people. I mean, people I really like that I think. So for me, it would be people who I would find exciting to work with, and not in the sense of they're famous or they're big, but in terms of I'd love to direct them and kind of create great characters and great scenes. That's how to look at it from my kind of film to answer that through a filmmaker lens. That's what I would look for. So the actor Stephen Graham, who's just come in a show at the moment on Disney Plus called A Thousand Blows, but he's done loads of incredible stuff, such as This Is England, and he's popped up in the last few Scorsese films, which is great. So he's doing really well. But he's a phenomenal actor, one of my absolute faves. So he would be someone that would be incredible to work with, I think. And actually, to kind of date the podcast, if you like, but someone who I absolutely was blown away by their performance, and they've just won the Oscar for it, was Mikey Madsen in.
Oh my god, I love her.
in Honora. She was so amazing and exciting, and you kind of, and it's one of those performances where you think, oh, they've found someone like that, and they've just gone for it. And then when you see her kind of actually in interviews and doing all the stuff for the Oscars, it's like, oh, she's not coming across like that. She just really created this incredible character and got lost in it. And that's what I like. So there's so many actors I could list I'd love, but they're kind of two that, Stephen Graham I'm always loving, but I'm really excited about what she does next. That's what I'm interested in, because I thought Nora was fantastic and I thought she was. So I wish it was me who was working with her next, because it'd be very exciting.
Definitely. Before I ask my second question, obviously, with Mikey Madsen, she's really good, because there's this one film I watched called All Souls that she was in with some other actors, and obviously, she played the character in it who was a mother of one, and she was really good at it as well.
I'll check that. What's that called? All Souls?
All Souls. It's got Zach Villa, Samuel Rutkin, Mikey Madsen, and I think a few other actors, but I couldn't remember their names.
Yeah, no, that's great. I will check that out. I'm always up for good recommendation.
Amazing. And you've got your second question.
The second and last question is, when you created that movie, what was like your most favourite scene or actual like part of the movie that you did that you liked?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when you write the script, you're trying to come up with, in some ways you want every scene to become a scene that could become your favourite, because you want it to be essential and you want it to be great and engaging, etc.
Yeah.
And then when you're making the film, there's certain scenes that when you're filming, it's not necessarily about enjoyment. You might hate filming a scene because it's really complicated, for example, but that probably actually means it's going to be something really interesting. And then so you work with all these great actors and great locations and great crew to create all these wonderful moments. And then sometimes it can be the most simple thing that you really enjoy. And so in the film, there's a moment where, let's say, the son and the mum are at this retreat, and the mum is out. It's late at night, and she's out by kind of an outdoor fire pit by herself. And then the son comes back. He's been on a date, and he comes back, and he stands next to her, and they give this look that not only this look says a lot about what they've been through and what we've seen them be through, but it hints at what's to come. And like I say, by this point, things are starting to hint at sinister things. And it was, I mean, look, it's down to the actors. They were fantastic. And that's what excites me. It's like you plan for all this great stuff and then something so simple happens. So I love that. I will say one other thing, which actually maybe falls a bit closer to a fun story we were talking about earlier. And that is, there's a scene we shot on Hastings Beach. And it was like the hottest day of the year. We were, it was so hot. It was crazy. And we're filming, it's actually the date I just mentioned he came back from. It was that date we were filming. And so they were on, so it was a guy and a gal on a date. And then at the end of that scene, when it's sunset, so we filmed all day knowing that we were going to film up to sunset, and it's fingers crossed we get a good sunset, because we've got one opportunity to do this. This is the thing with indie films. You can't go, oh, there's no good sunset, we'll come back another time, reschedule. It's like, we've got whatever happens today, we've got to get. And it had started to rain, and it was like, oh no, and all these clouds come over just when we were getting ready for a sunset shot. And there's a tongue twister. And we were like, oh no. But everyone cleared off the beach because it started raining, and we kind of huddled in our van. And then everyone had gone, and and then the sunset came out. It was a beautiful sunset, and we were like, quick, let's get out.
Yay.
And it was quite a dramatic reveal. This guy says something to, and all the birds in the background, seagulls, had landed on the beach. I wasn't really aware. I wasn't even paying attention to that. I was looking at the actors. So I gave them some direction. We're shooting this beautiful wide shot. And just as this person says this key line, all the birds in the background fly up.
Whoa.
And then go off into the sky.
Cool.
And it looks absolutely incredible. And it's the kind of shot that if you had wanted, I'll tell you what would be brilliant. All the birds should go up at that moment. It would, well, we would never afford it. If you wanted it in a real film, you'd either be getting in some kind of bird wranglers and or using visual effects. I suspect in this day and age, heavily on the latter bit. And we would never be able to do that. And I just remember when it happened, me and the cameraman looked at each other and were just like our eyes were bulging. Like, oh my God. And then you're sitting there thinking, please don't, like, to the actors, you're thinking, please don't mess this up now, because there is no retake here. Those birds will never come back. We'll never get that. So you're sitting there going, oh, please get through it. And they did get through it. It was incredible. And then, yeah, exactly. And
then you're immediately like, back up that, back that up. Back up that footage.
It was like a party after that. And that's
so
the wonder
cool.
of filmmaking. You never know when those, and it's filmmaking, but it's also, again, trying to link it back to some of your guys' stuff. It'll be like that if you're, for example, interested in music and songwriting. There'll be a bit where you'll plan it all out. You've written this great song, and then you're in the studio, and you or someone else has an idea. Could even be an accident, and you're like, and then it's like, I could never have planned for that, and it just happens, and that will happen a lot, and it's noticing those moments, being able to take advantage of those moments.
Absolutely.
Thank you for answering my questions, by the way.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think that story is quite a cool one to wrap things up, unless there's any last questions from our student team here today. Stan's got one. I'll just say, going to turn you up a bit.
This is kind of like going way back, but did you ever start by like filming like sort of homemade sort of video films?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I mean, I was filming videos with my friends when I was like, I can't remember now, but like 10 or 11 plus, like getting friends around with a camera, and I carried on doing that through my teenage years. I made. If you were my friend, the chances are you knew you were going to end up in a film. I used to make films when I was particularly young with my action figures, with my toys there. and then I'd film like scenes and scenarios, and then those kind of short films would eventually get better in quality. I mean, I'm sure if I look back now, it'd be shocking, but for my age and for what I was doing, and even if you did look back now, you could see a growth. And there was stuff that I did then that I would still remember now and go, oh, I'm going to do that. Like, I don't know, certain angles or certain things that didn't work. And actually, if we're kind of moving into kind of closing comments, if you like, I would. So first of all, this is going to combine. So do more of what you want to do. If you want to do podcasts, if you want to do music, if you want to do film, whatever it is you want to do more of it, because you're going to make mistakes and things aren't going to work. But that's when you learn. It's hard to learn actually when things go right, because what made that work? You can sit down and think about it, but actually when you go, that didn't work, well, I know not to do that now. I can cut that off, or I know I'll come at that differently. Maybe something you really wanted to do and it didn't work. So why didn't it? And it's by kind of making music that's not very good will lead you to making good music. It's by making films that aren't very good. And when I say they're not very good, they might be great at the time, but you'll look back and go, perhaps that isn't. And obviously there's always caveats to that. There's always exceptions, but generally, you're gonna improve the more you do it. So always keep making stuff, and that ties in to connect very much with your audience. If you're in college, when you're in education, you're going to have access to equipment and people. And by people, I mean your colleagues, your fellow students, but also your teachers and support staff there, that will allow you to go and make stuff that you will not be able to do when you leave college or leave uni. So if you want, you'll have access to great camera equipment and great editing equipment for no charge. You'll have great access to podcast studios, music studios, instruments, other band members that you would not have when you leave, or at least not as easy, not as free, and probably not as supported by what like something like a Super Jam. So if you really want to get in your chosen industry, don't just do the college work, because when you come out of college, everyone is coming out with that same portfolio pretty much. Every college across the country, whether they're as specialized as Super Jam or not, people are going to come out and want to work in the same job as you. So what will stand you apart is the tenacity, and that, when the drive we spoke about earlier, is the quality of your work. But that quality of work is only improved by doing more of it. So if you've gone and done a podcast that, whether it's got 1 million listeners or not, but has allowed you to come out with more content to show people, if you've come out with, if I'm making this up totally, but if through college you end up doing 8 hours a term in this music studio, saying, but then you use it more and now come out with 20 hours in the music studio, you're better than the person who did 8 hours. It's just simple stuff. So come out. So really make the most of that. I did a bit at college, but I don't think I fully appreciated it until until I looked back. And so my biggest kind of lesson, my biggest thing to say is make the most of where you are, and use all those people around you who want to work in the similar fields to you. It's essential, and I think you'll all be better off for it when you leave college.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much, Chris. Guys, I'm going to have to close the floor for questions now. Thanks so much. That's us at time, but I want to say a massive thank you to the student team helping out in the background. Chris, round of applause. Thanks so much.
Thank you,
and anyone who's listening in, I'm sure this has been great for you. Thanks for being tuned into the podcast. We'll catch you later. Bye.